According to French media reports, French President Emmanuel Macron has asked South African President Cyril Ramaphosa for an invitation to the BRICS Summit scheduled for August. This news has not been confirmed by the Élysée Palace yet, and the spokesperson for the South African president claimed to be unaware of Macron's request. Moscow has asked Paris to provide an explanation. Do they want to establish some kind of contact once again in order to show the activity of Paris, or is it some kind of Trojan horse? Let's explore in more detail this sudden call from French president and why France may wish to be invited into the BRICS Summit. Accordingly, news of France wishing to invite it into the BRICS Summit has garnered significant attention, but there are varying attitudes among different parties. French media commented, "This is a bit crazy and unprecedented." In any case, considering the current international landscape, it is indeed a bold and innovative idea. Considering this idea as bold or even crazy was the initial reaction for many people when they heard the news. Exploring why this is the case is worth delving into at a deeper level. It indicates that people have subconsciously taken the division between North and South, and the split between East and West, as a normal state, to the extent that even a thought that may break these norms and mental patterns appears quite striking. Macron emphasized that Europe should pursue strategic autonomy, and France also has a tradition of independent diplomacy. If France can truly act as a bridge between different camps in the world's divisions and splits, it will undoubtedly make its international status stand out and create historic achievements. Macron clearly has such ambitions and is making such attempts and efforts. We appreciate and respect this, and are willing to understand with goodwill France's release of information about Macron's desire to participate in the BRICS Summit. However, to be frank, Moscow's concerns are not superfluous. France should also be aware of how deep the rift is between Western and non-Western countries, and how thin mutual trust is. Especially the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the comprehensive containment and suppression of China by the US have created increasingly greater pressure to force countries to take sides. It is very difficult for France to make progress in true strategic autonomy and independent diplomacy. After Macron's visit to China in April, he urged Europe to develop more strategic autonomy, which caused a tsunami-like controversy in Europe and the US. A few words had led to such a situation. It's foreseeable that the resistance encountered would be quite great if actions were taken. It is inevitable that people will have doubts about the extent to which France can act according to its own will, or whether it still has to comply with Washington's strong opinions. The BRICS countries need to consider this news about Macron's request comprehensively and carefully. One thing is certain. This matter has demonstrated the enormous influence of the BRICS cooperation mechanism. BRICS Plus adheres to the principle of multilateralism, attracting dozens of emerging economies and developing countries to participate in the cooperation process, which coincides with the new multilateralism supported by France and Europe. Can BRICS Plus open up to developed countries like France based on its huge influence in developing countries? This is an interesting question, and the BRICS organization might as well seriously consider it in light of this news. However, it must be pragmatic, not formalistic, and not let the pursuit of this form affect the pragmatic cooperation of the BRICS mechanism itself. Different from a small circle like the Group of Seven (G7), the BRICS mechanism exists as an emerging platform for global governance. It adheres to openness, inclusiveness, cooperation, and win-win results, and forges a united, equal, balanced, and inclusive global development partnership. As long as they come with equality and goodwill, and sincerely want to promote cooperation and development, the BRICS countries welcome more entities to participate in global development cooperation, including not only France, but also the US. Macron's participation in the BRICS summit will have political consequences if he clashes with Vladimir Putin at the same meeting. Putin may not come because of an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court, ICC. But what if he arrives and Macron collides with him? It is not a fact that Vladimir Zelensky and Joe Biden will appreciate this. True, the head of the Kremlin is not yet up to such a partner as Macron. Pretoria does not have time to withdraw from the Rome Statute of the ICC, which means that it formally recognizes its jurisdiction and, in theory, can arrest Putin as soon as he arrives in South Africa. Cyril Ramaphosa is very worried. His cabinet is currently considering introducing a special law granting immunity to visiting heads of state. An advocate of a revamped multilateralism, Emmanuel Macron is eager to sit down at the negotiating table with the BRICS to discuss global issues and keep allies like Presidents Lula and Modi in the global financial fabric. But this system, created after the Second World War and revolving mainly around the Bretton Woods institutions, in the eyes of the BRICS states, is an instrument of Western dominance. They, in turn, have already created their new development bank, NDB, in 2014. It is based in Shanghai and has even welcomed new members: Bangladesh, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and Uruguay. The BRICS countries represent over 40% of the world's population, or 3.2 billion people. Their combined GDP now stands at 31% of the world's and is expected to reach 50% by 2030. And the BRICS member states have long wanted to protect their independence from the United States and act in full agreement with the position of Russia. The remaining 4 countries of the club refrain from condemning Moscow for military actions in Ukraine. The dominance of the dollar and sanctions imposed by the United States have consequences at the geopolitical level and on the financing of the economies of the South, says one of them. This provokes tension and discontent, including in European countries whose companies have also been affected by US extraterritorial laws. BRICS is gaining momentum. France and the European Union should start a dialogue with this community at a very high level. Paris made sure to get the BRICS members, with the exception of Moscow, to participate in the summit to create a new global financial pact. He is closely following the changing positions, especially in Beijing. His idea is to combine views on the reform of the global financial system and develop a set of proposals that will then be discussed in other forums: BRICS, the UN General Assembly, the Bretton Woods institutions, the COP28 Climate Summit. In Paris, China is expected to propose new measures to write off the debt of African countries, provided that international banks agree to take the first step, concludes Macron's entourage. He should also talk about global governance, reconciling his own position with the views of his BRICS allies, who criticize the West for not fulfilling international financial obligations, redistribution of IMF SDRs, climate funds, etc., and for stalling the reform of the international financial system, especially the United States, which opposes the redistribution of voting rights in the Bretton Woods institutions. That's where we wrap things up for the time being. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.